Thank you, thank you. So just so I can see who was not here last week. Okay, so we are going to do a quick recap because what this is more of a hands-on workshop, sort of bouncing off from where we were last week. Last week what we did was we talked about some strategies, some tools, some philosophies, and as Susan said, you know, time is a force, time is a constant, and so we can't manage it. There's 24 hours in every day, the season goes around, but what we do is we manage ourselves within the constraints of time. And so when people talk about time management, it's a misnomer. We're going to use the term in the class because it's too clumsy to say, here's how we manage ourselves within time. So we're going to use the term as long as we all have the same understanding that what we're really talking about is managing ourselves. Is finding a schedule and finding the self-discipline and finding a rhythm that we need to work through. So for those of you who were not here last time, I'm going to bring you up to speed on why this is so important in our lives. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, said that my favorite things in life don't cost any money. It's really clear that the most precious resource we all have is time. So Steve Jobs had more money than all of us, right? Steve Jobs had more worldly influence than all of us. Steve Jobs had more earthly power than all of us. But Steve Jobs' most valuable asset was time. So if it's that valuable, how much do we need to strategize about it? How much do we need to plan? How much do we need to really sort of discipline ourselves? If you think about your monthly budget, would you just sort of start out at the beginning of the month and go, I'm just going to spend the money as it comes along. I'm just going to, you know, flow with it, you know, and so you flow right in and out of Target and then you don't have money for your mortgage at the end of the month. You know, we don't do that. And yet time is a more valuable commodity than money. So we're going to launch into workshop shortly. I want to remind everybody, Ecclesiastes 3:1, if you want to write that on top of your weekly planner page, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. What that means is if you think about like the Proverbs 31 woman and you read everything that she did, that she rose before the dark, that she bought and sold purple, that she bought fields, that was over a lifetime, okay? There's a time and a season for everything, and you may or may not be in a season to say yes to various things. My time and season now is different than it was when I was 25. My time and season 20 years from now will be different than it is today. And so there may be things that you want to accomplish in your life, but now is not the time. And that's good to have it off to the margin, to keep it off to the margin. That's why people have bucket lists. But bucket lists shouldn't just be for I want to skydive. Bucket lists should be for things like I want to complete my degree one day. Or, you know, whatever it is on your list that this is not your season, this is not your time. It doesn't mean never. It just means not now. So, last week we discussed, for the people who aren't here, pretty much the most important thing you can do in order to manage yourself within time is schedule your time. Schedule, schedule, schedule. And if you don't have it written down in at least a rough outline, then it's going to be like the monthly budget we talked about. You go to Target, you go wherever, and then it's mortgage payment time, and there's no money for that. And we can understand that when we're talking about money, that it doesn't make any sense. But obviously we're going to pay the most important things first. Well, when you're scheduling your week, that's really the way you're going to start with your week. Does anybody know about the go ahead, have a seat. Come on in, come on in. You know the story about the story, so there's an analogy where the speaker at the front has a vase, right? And there's big rocks, and there's gravel, and there's sand, and there's water. And so he asks the class, you know, can I get all of these things into the vase? And the class says, you know, no, blah, blah, blah. So if he puts the water in the vase first and fills up the vase with water, nothing else fits in, right? If he puts the sand in and fills the vase with sand, very little else fits in. If he puts the gravel in, very little else fits in. And the moral of the story is that you have to put the big rocks in first. And so he takes it in the reverse order. He puts the big rocks in. And he asks the class, does anything else fit? And they go, no, it's full. Well, he takes the pea gravel and he sprinkles it all in, and it goes all in around the rock, around the crevices and empty spaces. And he says, is it full? And they all go, yeah, now it's full. Well, he takes the sand and he pours the sand in, and because it's even smaller, it goes into even more crevices. And he says, is it full? They all go, yeah, it's full now. He takes the water. He pours the water in, and so when he goes in the right order, all 4 of the elements fit in the vase. And so that's what we're here to do today. They had a cancellation on a speaker, and Susan came up to me afterwards because we didn't have a lot of time afterwards to do the practical component. And so today, this is really rubber meets the road. We're going to put pen to paper and write down our practical components. And so the first handout you have is one that is just a suggestion, really, of the kinds of things that might take place in your day or your week. Because sometimes we forget about some of the things that happen in our lives. We forget to allocate for the things that happen weekly. We forget to allocate for the things that happen monthly. So that sheet is more of an overview. And I would love for you to just think for a moment, and probably the first thing that comes to your mind is, what's the one thing that you've been struggling to either add into your life or make time for? Just what is it? Is it more quiet time with the Lord in the morning? Is it a physical fitness routine? Is it just some time to think your own thoughts? What's the one thing that if, I came to you and I said, what one thing you're trying to get into your day or your week? Write that on the top of the page, because that's one of your big rocks. And so we really are going to then go into workshop session. The reason I gave you the sheet to think about things is because there are things that are important, like date night if you're married. If you're a single mom, what everybody likes to term me time, incredibly important. And you've got to think about them, you've got to plan them and time them. So the top sheet is more of a suggestion to look at and have it jar your memory. The second sheet is a 1-week schedule. My philosophy is that very few people have 2 days that look the same, Monday through Friday, and I'm going to have the same schedule every Monday, Tuesday. Very, very few people in life have days that look like that. And so it's not realistic to schedule one day and Xerox it 5 times for your Monday through Friday schedule. There are things in life that have to be done during the week that can't be done every day. And so you'll find as you look at your week, well, okay, I shared with the group last week, I don't like doing laundry and I don't like cooking. So I combine those 2 chores together because they require me to be at home. They require me to be in the same proximity of my house. And therefore I get them done 2 to 3 times a week, because I like to cook a meal once and then have it work for 2 nights, and if I can stretch it, 3 nights. But while I'm cooking it, the laundry's going on, and then on Saturday, that's not something that is keeping me anchored to my house, okay? My husband and I both sell real estate, I think y'all know that, and Sunday in real estate is a really big day. It's a really big day for open houses. But before I even married Dave, way back when he rededicated his life to the Lord and he was in real estate, he doesn't work Sundays. So we got married. I don't work Sundays. The Lord has blessed that in our lives. You need some time to rest. It doesn't have to be Sunday in your world. We're not in a legalistic place, but you've got to schedule in there a break. Time to just rest. Time to recreate. There's a book by Bill Hybels called Simplify. I love his definition of recreate. He said recreate means to recreate energy. So we don't just push ourselves with task, and work. We've got to put in there some rest time and some recreation time. The Lord means for us to enjoy our lives. And that might mean that some of other things have to be. So we're literally in this session going to take time, start doing your schedule. put it on paper. And for those of you who have tasks that take too long, there are two techniques. The Pomodoro technique, named after a tomato because the timer was shaped like a tomato. For things that you're spending too much time on, social media. I'm going to pull up social media and TV because in our culture those are the two things that people tend to spend more time on than they intended to. So as you look at your front sheet, right, and if you spend 30 minutes a day in your quiet time with the Lord, what do you think is an appropriate amount of time to spend on social media? What's the ratio you want in your life? Be intentional about it. What's the appropriate amount of time for you to spend watching TV? And it's not my standard, it's you. It's your life. What is right in your life? But be intentional about it. And that's why the front sheet, if you're putting down on that, it kind of forces you to say, you know what? I only want to do 30 minutes of social media a day. That's assuming that your job does not revolve around social media. But if you have a business that you're doing on the side and you're coming home from work and you need to do some social media, you're going to have to monitor that. And if you have a tendency to slip into it and get hypnotized by it, then you want to set a timer. Pomodoro technique. Set a timer for anything that takes too long, for anything you're procrastinating with, for anything that you want to control. So you can set it, people say that you lock on best in either 25-minute segments or 45-minute segments. So if you're a procrastinator and you're really having trouble getting to an activity, then you tell yourself, I only have to do it for 25 minutes. Set the timer, lock on. Do it for 25. If you do it for 10 or 15 or 5, then you're wasting time in between with the task shifting. And if you task shift from task to task that requires a lot of thought, it can take up to 23 minutes to get your focus back. So if you find that you're a person who can actually lock on for longer than 25 minutes, they say you're most efficient in 45-minute increments. And then you need to give your brain a little bit of a rest. You need to stand up, walk around, and either lock on to a different task or come and resume your same task. Okay? Very few people can lock on, for 3-4 hours without any break. My husband does when he's writing, but that's unique to him and unique to writing. I work best in those 25 and 45-minute increments where I will pulse what I'm doing back and forth. So before you fill out your daily schedule, the two things that I would think about are, what are your big rocks? What are the things that you absolutely want included in your day or your week? And then what are the things that you want to minimize? Is it social media? Is it TV? And if you like to visit Pinterest and you like to visit Instagram and you like to visit Facebook, you don't have to do all three every day. You can pulse through those. You can say, I'm going to do however many minutes on Instagram on Monday, I'm going to do Facebook on Tuesday, and I'm going to do Pinterest on Wednesday. Then I'm going to cycle back through them. You break things up so that you are getting your big rocks in, and yet you're managing those things that are time drains for you. So we're just going to open it up for you guys to put things down on paper, because when you leave here tonight, we want you to have a plan. I'm just going to roam. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll come over and we can visit a little bit about it. But that's what this workshop was designed to be, was we leave after a lecture and we get so busy and we don't end up actually putting pen to paper. So this is just your prisoners. So you can't leave until you have a fair amount of schedule on paper. So just enjoy yourselves. Raise your hand if you have a question. I'll pop over. Yes.
Is that book Simplify? Very good.
Yes. Excellent.
10 Practices to Unclutter Your Soul. Is that what it's called?
No.
Simplify by
Bill Hybels. Yes.
Then
that will be it. Yes.